Hey, what's up, everybody? Mr. Edgar here, back in Studio 23. Want to go over the Unit 2 Art Kit with you guys. This is supplies that we're going to be using for the next 2 projects that are going to wrap up our semester. Let's take a look. So in that art kit, you will find some Prismacolor colored pencils. You're going to find some liquid watercolors, a set of 2 brushes, one flat, one round, and you will also find within that some pieces of thick stock watercolor paper. Now for this first one, just like the other art kit, we're going to start off by just kind of introducing ourselves to the materials, understanding the processes by which we can use them. And with each of these 2 new media, both Prismacolor colored pencils and also with the liquid watercolors, the idea is that we're going to be putting on thin, transparent layers and then continually layer on top of each layer to reach bright intensities, opacity, and also have some control over transitions between those colors. So without further ado, let's see what we're going to do, yeah? So before we get into working with the materials, let's get to know what we have here. So first thing is that you guys should have a set of Prismacolor colored pencils. All the primaries and secondaries should be included, so you should have a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and then black and white. Prismacolors are fantastic colored pencils. They're kind of like top of the line. What makes a colored pencil good is what they're made out of. And colored pencils are made out of 2 things. They're made out of filler and pigment. Prismacolors have like the most pigment ratio compared to filler, which is what gives them like the really, really intense colors that they're able to make out of them. The one thing that you have to worry about is the more pigment that you have in a pencil, the more fragile it is. So if you've ever had that colored pencil that the tip fell out, and so you went to go sharpen it, started drawing with it again, tip falls out again, and it just keeps on repeating that. It's because the pigment on the inside has been fractured. And that usually happens just from people banging them on tables or dropping them on the floors. So in order to make sure that your colored pencils last you, please take really, really good care of these. Second thing that you guys got in your art kit is a set of liquid watercolors. You've got the full range. For the art kit purposes, we're really only going to be playing around with the primary colors so that you guys can learn how to mix those secondary colors. When using these watercolors, a dish or a piece of plexiglass or anything like that's going to work really well for you. But the big thing is we want to just practice portion control. What I mean by that is you have a whole lot of liquid in here, and this is enough for this semester for sure, but also for students for my second semester. Remember, you do have to return these at the end of the semester. So portion control. Kind of treat this like a all-you-can-eat buffet. You can always go back and get more pigment if you need some. The idea is to only put on there what you think that you're going to need. And just like an all-you-can-eat buffet, if you end up putting too much on your plate, you're going to get charged for anything that you don't eat. So I'm going to take my, let's use one I haven't opened yet. Let's go with chrome yellow. And I've certainly had a hard time getting these pieces of foil off. So what worked pretty good for me, look at that one came off, is if you can't peel these off, just take a pen and poke a little hole at the top. For our purposes for these, the amount that you would need to use for anything is really just about the size of, what would that be, like half of a pea? Because the idea is that from here, we're just going to be taking water and thinning out the color with that water. So all I'm doing is just kind of taking a wet brush, dipping in the water so I get more water on my palette, and then just pulling, just kind of poking at that color and pulling it away so that I have enough to make some marks on it like that. You also receive 2 brushes, a round brush, which is what we use for putting on detail, and also a 1/4 inch flat brush, which is what we're going to be using for filling in larger areas from there. And I believe you might have had a 3/4 inch brush as well for filling in those really big ones. These are synthetic golden Taklon brushes. They're also really nice, but they'll only stay really nice as long as you keep them clean. So never, ever, ever let paint dry in these bristles, because it will ruin the brush, and then you'll have to buy yourself and me a new one so that we can keep these for other students who enter the course. So just anytime that you are done painting for watercolors, all you really need to do is use hot water and get all of the paint out of it. All right, so for this art kit exploration, you're going to be doing 6 different exercises. First thing you're going to be doing is going to create a color spectrum. This is just a long rectangle using your Prismacolor colored pencils that is going to show layering and blending of those colored pencils so that we have red transitioning into orange, into yellow, into green, into blue, and then into violet. The second one is going to be done just with layers of watercolor. Same thing, we're going to be just like with colored pencil, we're going to be using a whole bunch of really light layers of color and layering them on top of each other so that we get good hues, good transitions, and good opacity. The third color spectrum that we're going to do is going to combine Prismacolor color pencils and watercolors. So you're going to start off with just a base of watercolor like you did in the one above, transition between your colors, and then go into your Prismacolors and layer those on top and just see how smooth of a transition you can make. With each 3 of these, the idea that I'll illustrate with a demonstration is that we're going to be overlapping colors on top of each other. And as we overlap those colors, we're going to create transitions or tertiary colors. So in between red and orange, we'll have red-orange. In between blue and green, we're going to be creating blue-green as we go across. Once we've done those, we're going to apply what we understand about layering and mixing colors or hues in order to show form. For this first one right here, it's going to be all colored pencil. I want you to monochromatically choose one color and black and white and render a 3-dimensional sphere showing highlights, shadows, and a smooth transition between your midtones. The second one is going to be a combination of watercolor and micron using hatching and cross-hatching to represent your shadows. Just like you did above, I want you guys to start by transitioning a single color of blue, or whichever color you want to choose. You can choose any color you like. Starting with your really light washes first, and then transitioning into darker and darker colors created through layering. Once you got that, and it's all the way dry, go ahead and grab your micron and just start making tiny little X's whose concentrations represent shadows, and as they get more spread out, represent midtones. The third sphere is going to be a combination of watercolor and colored pencil. Start off by doing a base of watercolor. I would like for this one to be analogous, so choose some colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. I went with red and violet, so I used violet for my shadows. I used red as my midtones, faded that into the paper to make pink tones until I got to my highlight right here. Once that was all the way dry, I went ahead and grabbed the same colored pencils, violet and red colored pencils, and just layered them on top of it to really show the form and the transition between the colors. This bottom part right here is just for you guys to test out your watercolor washes. So once you've mixed them on a palette, just to see how opaque or transparent they are, go ahead and just throw a couple strokes right on here to give you a better idea. All right, let's start off with the first one, the Prismacolor Color Spectrum.